This week, we are talking about firearms suicides and suicide prevention. And we have with us Mike Sedini, who is the founder of Walk the Talk America. Welcome to the show, Mike. Can you tell people a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. My background is I'm a third generation firearms industry professional who in 2009, I lost the president of my distribution company, my importing company, which was Eagle Imports, to suicide by firearm. And in 2018, I got an opportunity to create Walk the Talk America, which was just a complete pivot from what I was doing. Obviously, being an importer of firearms and selling them, building brands in the United States such as Bersa, Grand Power, Metro Arms, SPS, to working in suicide prevention and trying to solve the best we can some of the negative outcomes of firearms. 2018 is when I started that. Here we are, like 4 years later, and I could never imagine that I'd be here now working in this space. So it's a little brief history.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is obviously an extremely important topic. Traditionally, about 2/3 of gun deaths in America are suicides, not murders. This is something we talk about a lot in the political landscape because oftentimes you'll hear advocates for stricter gun laws conflate suicides and murders as though they sort of lump them together into gun deaths. And it's important to understand the components of gun deaths and that gun suicides are actually a major driver of gun deaths in America. And it's important to understand that issue because it's something that's been with us for a very long time. And it's something that I think the gun owning community, the gun industry have put more effort into as of the last several decades here, into prevention, into trying to find ways to bring down the suicide rate and to help those who are having suicidal ideation, people who are gun owners and who might be not responsive to other forms of intervention, but might have, there might be more of a chance that you could reach them with a program like yours. So why don't you just give us a quick overview of your program just to start off with here?
Okay, so I'm going to rewind to before I started this. When it came to the concept, right? When it was a night I was out with one of my national sales managers, and someone had asked a simple question. Right, we were talking about mass shootings, and we were with this lady, and she said, "Hey, like, what's the deal with the firearms industry when there's a mass shooting? What happens?" And I was like, "Well, contrary to what you think about us cheering, we actually don't." And I said, "It's not a good look for us. We can't stand it as an industry. There's a lot of factors to it, more than just the tragedy, right?" And I said, "What happens is then everyone blames us for it. We blame mental health, and then nothing ever happens." So she asked this one question. She goes, "Hey, if you understand that it's a mental health thing, how do you work with the mental health community to find solutions you can agree on?" And that just changed my whole life. Now, what I originally wanted to do with the concept, because my national sales manager turned to me, he's like, "Yeah, we should really be giving $1 a gun to mental health." Like, he just said it as like a blanket statement, right? So I originally just wanted to throw money at the situation. I thought, well, here's a cool concept. What if I were to get like Ruger and I was to go Armscore and High Point and all these companies that I had relationships with, that being in the firearms industry? What if we started supporting some mental health initiatives? Once again, just throwing money at the problem, right? Being like, "Hey, you guys handle it, but here we are," right? Would they take our money? Like, the mental health community takes money from Big Pharma. The mental health community would clearly take money from us. But what really was the eye opener for me was when I would reach out, I'm going to say across the aisle, right? But it's really not an aisle. And there, just like the gun industry has a lot of nuance, so does the mental health community. But when I reached out and said, "Look, I want to fund any kind of programs you have for outreach that would maybe stop mass shooters and potentially work on some suicide stuff," they pretty much were telling me, "You need to focus on suicide prevention." This is the mental health side of things telling me that. And every person that I talked to, every doctor, every clinician, every important person that I was able to get a hold of in the very beginning, they all steered me back to suicide prevention, because finding the next mass shooter is like finding a needle in a haystack. And they're the ones that told me that. And they told me why we should focus on suicide prevention is because if you can get to people early enough, cast such a wide net, get upstream to try to prevent the unpredictable, you might catch that next mass shooter early on in the process, right? But the true, issue that we need to focus on is suicide by firearm. And when it took me a while to get my head around that, but then someone put it to me in a way that I repeat it every time I talk, every time I'm speaking at a speaking event or I'm on a podcast or a radio show. We had 59 people. I'm in Vegas right now, down Mandalay Bay, down the street. We had 59 people die on October 1 tragedy. Everybody knows about that. It's one of the worst mass shootings ever. We have 67 people that take their life with a firearm a day, right? So we have a October 1 mass shooting every single day, and the news doesn't cover it. People that have bad intentions when it comes to firearms and maybe anti-gun, they like to lump that number in total gun deaths, like you had mentioned earlier. And really, when you do that, the focus goes away from the real problem. So what we look for is root cause mitigation. What we try to do is find innovative ways that we can get people the help they need when they're in crisis without fear of consequence, right? To make Earth better, to make their mental state better, and maybe save their lives. And what we realize is that the firearms can be a symbol of a place where someone can go to actually use as a resource to get help. It doesn't have to just represent what it does to us: freedom, protection, protecting your family, right? Now we can also say, like, we could take this valuable space and make it so people know that they can go and get help from a trusted source that's not going to, cause them to lose their firearms rights. I mean, that's the most important thing.